All right, what is going on, Laker fans? Thank you for tuning in. A little Lakers talk action right now. Um, Wanted to do another one of these. Still a little bit of reaction to the Pat Beverley stuff. I saw an article earlier today, Jovan Buha talking about Russell Westbrook. I did the show this morning with Travis Rogers, and actually was a little surprised of Laker fans' reaction to the trade going down for Pat Bev. Probably a 50-50 split. So I got a couple things that I want to get into, and let's kind of try to figure out here if this makes it more likely or less likely that Russ is going to be on the Lakers by the time training camp starts. So we'll do all that. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. I mentioned this yesterday. So trying this little this new streaming service or whatever the case is. So might allow me to kind of just do more videos, to be honest with you, and do more actual visual videos rather than just audio. So we'll see if we could pump these out when it makes sense. Please subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. Obviously, a lot of the time that I spend on this channel is around Lakers content. Okay, let's get started. So this morning I did my show, and we get a chance. Travis and I do a show 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 710 ESPN. Did the show this morning, and I actually thought there'd be a lot more Laker fans that were really excited about getting Patrick Beverley on the team. When I say really excited, I'm not saying you went out there and you grabbed an all-star. I'm not saying you went out there and you got somebody that's just going to instantly change your entire roster and your entire team. But the Lakers are in desperate need of defenders, desperate need of somebody that you think could potentially help change the culture inside that locker room, a dog, someone that could go match up against some of those guards around the NBA. And I'm not also crazy. I know he's 34 years old, so he's not going to be Gary Payton in his prime or even Pat Bev when he was, obviously a go-to player to go up and at least make life a little bit more difficult for some of those other guards out there. But we got a wide range of calls. Some of the calls, hey, you guys are undervaluing what Patrick Beverley brings to the table, which I don't feel like I was undervaluing. I think T. Raj was more doing that. And then I got other people saying, here are the Lakers again. What is their direction? They're going after a 34-year-old dude, and they're trading away young talent to go get him. So I was a little bit surprised that it was a little bit more down the middle than overwhelming. Hey, really excited about having this guy. Really excited about Patrick Beverley. So that kind of took me aback a little bit. Now, granted, I think I think for Laker fans, there hasn't been too much to be excited about. So maybe for me, this is just on me. I was excited that there was some Laker news, that there was, a player out there that you feel like can be part of a good culture or be a piece of a culture that the Lakers didn't have last year. So um, we'll see how things pan out. I do want to go to this report from Jovan Buha. So Jovan, who's really become just a friend of mine in the industry, have him on pretty frequently on Lakers Talk. I'm gonna read something off here. Jovan, he said it makes it more likely that Westbrook will be off the active roster by the time training camp starts, either through a trade or the team sending him home, like the Houston Rockets did with John Wall last season. So again, this is Jovan Buha, who writes for The Athletic, covers the Lakers for The Athletic. He said Lakers are still actively pursuing Westbrook deals and other avenues to improve the roster before training camp. So a couple things went through my mind, and I thought of Russ, 100%. I thought about Russ the moment that trade went down yesterday. I'll tell you why I thought of Russ. First, I thought of Russ once the KD news went down that Kevin Durant's going to stay in Brooklyn, and then now you knew that Kyrie Irving's not going anywhere. So part of the reason why I thought of Russ a week ago or so is because we knew KD was staying. So Lakers are going to start having to work on plan Bs, the Kyrie portion of it, get that out of the way. And I don't think this is just for the Lakers. I think a lot of teams now know KD's staying there. So Boston's going to continue to go with the team they have. Phoenix is going to go. Miami's going to go. Whatever teams that are out there that were interested in KD, they're now going to take other paths to try to improve their roster. But then these other teams like the Lakers, it's like Kyrie's not happening. Let's get moving. And they got moving. They traded for Patrick Beverley, THT, and Stanley Johnson go. I thought about Russ because I thought it could be the start of those conversations that everybody was waiting to have. Now they're in position to have. The only other big domino I think that still needs to fall, if it happens one way or the other, is Donovan Mitchell. So maybe that Donovan Mitchell stuff might still hold up some stuff. But either way, reading what Jovan Buha is saying right there, basically what he's saying is that the Lakers have kind of already made up their mind here that either they trade him or they send him home. That one kind of surprises me a little bit. I guess I never really thought coming into the season, this would contradict a lot of things that Darvin Ham has said, that you've heard from the front office so far. It would contradict when Darvin Ham came how he plans on using Russ, how Russ is going to be a role player, that we're going to play to his strengths, everything else. Now, Russ could simply just not agree to want to have that role on the Lakers. Russ could simply agree that, okay, send me home then, but I'm going to be Russell Westbrook and I'm not going to adjust for anybody. I'm going to be myself and I'm going to play the way I need to play. And maybe the Lakers and Russ decide, okay, well, then that partnership's not going to happen with the Lakers. What I hope happens, I hope that doesn't happen. What I hope happens is there's a clean trade before we get to the start of training camp. What I hope happens is the Lakers are able to go make a move with a team like the Indiana Pacers or the Utah Jazz, or maybe there's another team that nobody's talking about that has interest of grabbing Russ's final year of his contract, cleaning off their books at this year, and then getting some draft compensation. What that draft compensation is, whether we can all sit there and argue these two first rounders, give them up, don't give them up. By the way, you can feel free to comment if you think at this point it's worth giving up those two first rounders like Miles Turner and Buddy Hield for a couple of guys from the Indiana Pacers, or if that doesn't make sense. But I would be surprised if season starts and they tell him just to go home. And like I said, that more has to do with the way Darvin Ham came in, his vision of using him. But let's not forget there was a moment when Russ's old agent, previous agent, when they separated, Russ's old agent was trying to tell Russ, stay with the Lakers. Look at your value right now around the league. Teams have to give up multiple picks just to get rid of you. So he was trying to encourage Russ to stay with the Lakers. Russ, obviously, they part ways. I'm assuming Russ, maybe he's made up his mind, maybe he hasn't, about moving on from the Lakers. So we'll see what eventually happens on that front. But I thought that was interesting from Jovan to say it. This another thing I thought was interesting. This was earlier today. So while I'm doing the show, somebody had sent out a tweet at Cuffs the Legend. The Westbrook disrespect and vitriol is still corny, regardless of how you feel about last season. Some people got to get a life, man. This dude sends out the tweet. LeBron sends back something on top of that. Can't wait for him to go off this season. So this is Braun, obviously, in support of Russ. Pat Beverley put a tweet out there as well, in support of Russ as well. So I'm a little kind of thrown off by some of these tweets. Even Jovan's comments, I'm a little thrown off by. Like I said, I'd just be surprised if the Lakers, if they trade him, that's not a surprise or a shock. But just telling him to basically go home sounds a little bit surprising based off everything else that we've heard in the offseason. Laker fans, what do you think? Do you think it makes it more likely that Russ will no longer be on the Lakers because Pat Beverley is now on the team, that they've pretty much made their decision, hey, we got to move on from Russ? Or do you still think there's a strong chance that training camp comes and Russ is still on this team? So I don't have the answer, but that's kind of my take on that, and that report from Jovan Buha. And like I mentioned earlier, the temperature of Laker fans on the deal for Pat Bev threw me off just a little bit. Before our show ended, John Ireland was going on talking about how you got to have a defensive player like this, and the Lakers don't have it. And Ramona Shelburne, who everybody knows as well, covers the NBA for ESPN. She wasn't crazy about the trade. And the point that she was trying to make is there's other players that she feels like the Lakers could have traded for using THT rather than Patrick Beverley. She talked about Bogdanovich of the Utah Jazz. I think she mentioned another player on the Utah Jazz as well. I guess the argument just comes: you're looking for offense, you're looking for defense. Pat Bev's going to give you that defense that obviously the Lakers don't have. Appreciate you guys listening to the show, Laker fans. Feel free to comment. Please subscribe to the channel, and we'll get back with you guys soon. Just a quick heads up, I am off next week. So no Lakers talk next week. So something to keep in mind. All right, Laker fans, have a good rest of your night. Have a good rest of your day. And we'll get back with you guys soon. Thanks for listening.